From what we know right now, should the suspect in this case, Jack Teixeira, should have even had access to these documents? Did it make any sense to you when you heard that this young man had access to that kind of sensitive information?
Well, I don't think there's any question but that somebody who's a low-level air guardsman should not have had access to some of the highly classified information that was out there. There's no reason for it. He doesn't need it. And I think the fact that there are literally thousands upon thousands of people who have access to classified information is something that really has to be looked at very seriously in order to limit access and make sure that it is more secure.
And how much damage do you think has been done as a result of these documents being released and put out there? It's quite an embarrassment for the U.S. I mean, with allies all over the world. I'm sure they've been burning up the phone lines over to the White House trying to get to the bottom of this.
Well, the interesting thing that I'm seeing is that we really don't know the full extent of the damage that's been done. We get new revelations almost every day now involving just exactly what was in the leak of this classified information, which tells me that this stuff is spread all over the place. But make no mistake about it. Anytime there is a leak of highly classified information, it is going to damage our national security. And that's happened here. There are sources that are at risk. Those that provide that information are now vulnerable. It impacts on our allies, our trust with our allies, even though they know that we all spy on one another. The fact is, when this information does come out, you've got to repair that relationship again. Add to that the battlefield information with regards to Russia and Ukraine clearly affects military decisions that are critical as to what happens with that war. And then add to that just our reputational damage and the damage to our trust. If you're going to have intelligence relationships with others, there has to be a relationship of trust, and that's been damaged.
And what guardrails do there need to be in place to make sure this doesn't happen again? And Mr. Secretary, I have to ask you, because I know you've been in various roles, Chief of Staff, CIA Director, Defense Secretary. I mean, is this the kind of situation where the President or the Chief of Staff, somebody at the White House, is maybe demanding some resignations over this?
Well, there's no question this is a giant wake-up call. Anytime this happens, whether it was Snowden, whether it was others who've revealed this kind of information, what happens is that you suddenly have to take another look, stop becoming complacent about what happens with regards to intelligence. I think there's several areas that have to be looked at. I'm glad the President directed both the Pentagon and intelligence agencies to not only investigate, but determine how we improve security. Number one, ask the question, are we classifying too much? Should we tighten up on the classification process to secret and top secret and not include all of these other areas that are part of classified information? Secondly, who should have access? And how do we secure that access? If you're going to have access, shouldn't you have somebody else in the room, particularly if you're a low-level airman? Shouldn't you have a superior officer or somebody else in the room to make sure that it's secure? Thirdly, what about clearances? Shouldn't we have a review process on clearances? We provide a clearance as was provided here, but then when somebody like this goes astray and starts getting involved in chat boxes with others, shouldn't we have the opportunity to be able to take a look at that and determine whether he should retain his clearance? And lastly, oversight of social media. This stuff was out there for almost a month before it was detected. We should be looking regularly at social media because clearly that is going to be the media where this kind of information is going to wind up going.
And what do you make of some of these leaders on the far right, like Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, defending Teixeira? I'm sure you've seen some of that out there I mean, there are actually some folks who are defending this.
Well, you know, if you really are concerned about protecting the United States of America, what she said is just the opposite. What she's doing is basically saying we ought not to protect our most classified information, which in my mind undermines our national security. And for someone to say that, what they're essentially saying is we should not protect ourselves, because the only way we protect ourselves is with good intelligence about our adversaries so that we can make the right decisions. What she's saying is, oh no, let's not protect that information. Let's just throw it out there so our enemies and our adversaries all have access to this very sensitive information. I think it's grossly irresponsible, particularly for an elected official to take that position.
And while I have you, I'm sure you just heard a few moments ago, we have suffered another mass shooting in this country. You worked inside the White House during the Clinton administration. The Clinton administration tried to tackle this problem, passed an assault weapons ban, signed it into law. It expired during the Bush administration. What does it say about this nation's security that so many of us are afraid of mass gun violence in America?
You know, it's shocking every time these mass killings take place. It just reminds us of the dangers within our own society that we're not paying attention to, whether it's mental problems, whether it's too many weapons that are out there, whether it's the problem of basically not overseeing the distribution of both ammunition and weapons in this country in a way that can limit, who has access to those kinds of weapons. I just think that ultimately, and I'm really glad that somebody in Tennessee recognized that you have to take some steps here. I think that's the bottom line right now, is we can't just keep excusing it. We have got to take steps. Yes, they can be small steps. I understand that. But taking any kind of steps right now would send a signal to the American people that we aren't just ignoring what is obviously a danger within our own society.
Yeah. Ignoring it's not going to work. That's for certain. All right, Mr. Secretary. Thanks so much for your time. Secretary Leon Panetta. We appreciate it as always. Thank you so much. Good to be with you.